all, you're too kind. Thank you for staying this late in the evening. We're going to have a great discussion about distribution. Just a couple of points before we get started. First off, oh, that's much better, and we can see each other. First off, distribution is kind of a broadly and loosely used term. So for the sake of today, we're going to be talking about distribution both from a promotion but also a place standpoint. So at the end of the day, how do we get these great products and services that we've been talking about all day, mainly products, and how do we get them into the hands of our consumers? So I'll invite my panelists up now to get comfy on our sofa. I'll introduce myself just briefly, and now I'll let the panelists introduce themselves. So again, my name is David Weigelt. I am one of the principals and co-founders of a digital marketing firm called Immersion Active. We've been around for 15 years. About 7 years ago, we decided to narrow our focus on consumers in the second half of life. And we did this for very non-altruistic reasons. We saw a big opportunity that there was this large audience, in fact, the internet's largest constituency and fastest growing, that was very underserved online. And so since then, in about the past 7 years, we've written a book called .boom, for which we've developed a framework for engaging these consumers online in the different segments that make up the mature markets. And we've been responsible for about over $1 billion worth of successful transactions in about the past 5 years. So I feel a little funny to be up here talking about distribution as if it's a problem, because actually distribution isn't a problem. It's very realistic. As a matter of fact, the very fact that this conference is happening here is a testament to the fact that these consumers are very much in the marketplace looking for products and services, and not just PERS devices. They're looking for all kinds of products and services. In multiple categories that you will see here at the Consumer Electronics Trade Show, our consumers are the biggest spenders. And so I'm very excited about our panel today. This panel represents 3 different companies that have successfully cracked the distribution code. So again, we're going to talk about this in terms of place and promotion. I'm going to introduce these gentlemen just very quickly, and then I'll let them introduce themselves. So starting left to right, we have Tony Wells, who's the CMO of ADT, the security company. And then next to him, we have Kevin Harrington, who you guys will recognize in a minute when you see his video, but he is the chairman of As Seen on TV. That is how he's maybe not best known, but he'll tell you more completely about himself. And then finally, on the very end there, we have Ed Keller, who is the president of EarQ. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. And Tony, we'll start with you, if you don't mind. If you could just tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at ADT Security Services. Been at ADT coming up on 2 years. We're the largest provider of residential and small business security in North America. 17,000 employees, about $3.3 billion in revenue. What's less known is that we actually have been in the PERS business for quite a while, and I would say we are looking to kind of rejuvenate that product and that category for our company. We have had a traditional kind of POTS or landline-based PERS product. We, at the end of last year, 2013, launched a cellular product that we think is going to really increase our awareness and the product consideration. And then we're going to be moving to a mobile PERS. But we also see this whole category intersecting with what's happening in the home in terms of a home hub and a partnership that we have with Idea Life that provides FDA certified pill box, glucose, blood pressure scale that we think can use that same backbone and our encrypted and trusted network to exchange information with both caregivers, insurance companies, family members, et cetera. Yep. So we're really bullish and excited about the category.
Yeah, happy to have you. Thank you for that intro, and we'll dive deeper on some of that stuff. Ed?
Okay, well, my name's Ed Keller, president of EarQ. We are a distribution network in the hearing healthcare field. It's interesting because we're an industry that has somewhat of an identity crisis where we're challenged with the fact that we're clinically based, but yet we really don't have a very good message out there, and as a result, 80% of the people with hearing problems go untreated. So it's a very debilitating issue that affects every relationship that you have. It affects other illnesses like hypertension, depression, heart disease, diabetes, and our organization has been focused on developing innovative ways to reconnect people to communication, get them excited, because the technology today is so good, but yet people don't know about it, and it's getting people reconnected to those relationships that are so important to them.
Yep, and so we look forward to talking to you and hearing a little bit more about how you're appealing more broadly, not just to the oldest of oldest seniors, but to the younger as well.
Sure.
And then finally, I promised a little video intro here for Kevin. What Kevin is probably best known for is being Mr. Shark Tank. And so, Kevin, is that a good setup for the video?
That's great.
Okay.
Okay.
So Kevin, while we're waiting, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your background and history starting in like the mid-'80s?
Okay. I started in the infomercial industry back in 1984, and I started buying up a lot of the downtime that was available late night. A lot of people say infomercials are late night television, and that's where it all started. So you got it? Okay, good.
Is it working?
There we go.
But need the money and a little direction to make it big? Meet Kevin Harrington.
With 500 products launched and generating over $4 billion in product sales worldwide, meet Kevin Harrington. Kevin is the ambassador and principal architect of the global direct response industry. Kevin has created brand after brand in nearly every category, including housewares, fishing, golf, music, fitness, and automotive by combining great products with great superstar talent like George Foreman, Billy Mays, Anthony Sullivan, Jack LaLanne, Montel Williams, Hulk Hogan, Tony Little, Holly Madison, Kim Kardashian, 50 Cent, Kathy and Paris Hilton, CeeLo Green, and Chris and Bruce Jenner.
My advice to everybody, if you even have an idea, you'd want to go to Kevin Harrington.
He's appeared in hundreds of magazines and television segments, including 2020, The Today Show,
Consumer correspondent Janice Lieberman got a preview.
Joan Rivers' How'd You Get So Rich, The Big Idea with Donnie Deutsch, CNN, Fox Business, Bloomberg, The Wendy Williams Show, Jim Cramer's The Street, MTV, Good Morning America, CBS Morning News, CNBC Squawk Box, Entrepreneur, Fox and Friends, RTL Germany, Bethany, and The View.
Kevin Harrington. Hey, Kevin. Thank you for having me. We love it when you're here.
Kevin's extensive direct response resume and the acquisition of AsSeenOnTV.com, the world's largest online marketplace of As Seen on TV products, has positioned him as the ambassador of the As Seen on TV industry. Kevin was selected to star as an investor shark on the ABC television network hit show Shark Tank, produced by Mark Burnett, where budding entrepreneurs pitch their product ideas for a chance to sell them and make millions. Shark Tank has been wildly popular, has produced multiple million-dollar products, and has become a pop culture phenomenon.
Now the last clue, back to the Shark Tank.
I'm Kevin Harrington. Sharks do cooperate sometimes.
Hello, sharks. I'm Daniel Tosh, and I am the proud inventor of the high toilet.
Kevin is one of the co-founders of the Electronic Retailing Association and also co-founded the Entrepreneurs Organization, which has grown to the world's largest entrepreneurial organization in more than 45 countries. Recently, Kevin was awarded the ERA's Lifetime Achievement Award for his monumental impact on the industry. Kevin is also a weekly contributor to the highly accredited Forbes.com with over 50 million unique monthly visitors, where he provides crowdfunding expertise and business strategies for fellow entrepreneurs. As Seen on TV launched its new crowdfunding platform for inventors in late 2013. Kevin is sought after all over the world, whether he's throwing out the first pitch at a Major League Baseball game, ringing the NASDAQ bell, or inspiring and teaching students, entrepreneurs, and business professionals on becoming a key person of influence. Harrington is author, marketing guru, advertising celebrity, television personality, ambassador of the As Seen on TV industry, the billion-dollar man, and infomercial king, Kevin Harrington.
Man, shouldn't we all have an intro like that? So yeah, that's okay. So, to all of our panelists. So I'm going to address the elephant in the room to get started, and then I'll ask some more serious questions. But Kevin, how did you go from making millions selling Snuggies, which my wife now has one, I'm not sure how it made its way, to selling incontinence products?
Okay, so, well, when I started, I actually, I got cable television back in 1984 in my home, and I had 30 channels. And when I first went to look at the 30 channels, channel 30 there was bars on the screen. And so I called the cable company and I said, the cable guy's already left. And there's something wrong because I'm not getting channel 30. And they said, no, we don't have programming for channel 30 yet. It's going to be about 4 or 5 months. So it's just going to be bars on the screen. So that's when the light bulb went off in my head that why don't I put something on channel 30? So that's when I started selling products, and from Ginsu knives to Tony Little Fitness and all that kind of stuff. But basically, as we started going across all the spectrums of all the cable networks, the golf channel went dark at midnight, and this other channel would go dark at various times. So we started picking up time at all different times of the day and night, and that's what led us to owning blocks of media. So at the end of the day, incontinence products had a performance. I mean, if on an afternoon we had time available, that might have been a good time to sell those kind of products. So but the funny thing is that actually the silver market is very responsive because they're still watching television. I mean, just recently I was sitting there I have a 25-year-old and a 16-year-old, and the three of us are in the living room. I'm watching television. My 25-year-old is watching his computer, and my little guy is on his phone. And so I'm the only one watching television. So, the older market is watching TV and very responsive to TV. So it's a very strong marketplace.
Yeah, well, thank you, and I appreciate it. And I want to come back and I want to talk about, in a bit here, how you have taken what you learned about selling on video via television, and you're taking that to the internet now. Yes. But let me kind of move on here for a second. Ed, tell us a little bit about EarQ's distribution strategy, and then in particular, I would like to know how is it that you guys are leveraging kind of an existing network of independent distributors, if I understood correctly, and still distinguishing yourself from some of your more older school competitors?
Well, the independent distributor is really the focal point and the primary way to access hearing healthcare today. But what I realized a long time ago, several years ago, was the fact that the digital age was here, and that the private practice in today's hearing healthcare field was likely to have difficulty being visible on the internet. The internet is how we begin making most decisions nowadays. So if my practice in my local practice doesn't have visibility on the internet, I can't get in front of the patient. So the EarQ group was started to create a global visibility to connect patients to that local practice that's so important in today's hearing healthcare field.
That's great. So tell us maybe some of the ways that you guys do that.
Sure. What we realize is that with 30 million people currently going untreated, that's 80% of the market. We were the problem, and we weren't doing a very good job of communicating the importance of hearing health. So by taking some responsibility, we took a step back and said, well, how do we change that? So the first thing we looked at was, well, who else has done something similar, and what would that cost? And one of the interesting models that we looked at is we looked at the erectile dysfunction market. And very similar issues where there's a self-confidence issue. Yep. It's common to the same demographic. And we said, well, who was successful in that area? Whereas 10 years ago, that might have been a private issue. And today, it's a very public issue. It's talked about all the time. So we looked at the Viagra model, and we said, well, they spent about $300 million creating that story. And we pooled our money at the center of the table, realized we didn't have that to put together. So we said, how else can we do this? And we looked at global brand partnerships with organizations like the NFL and the NBA unions, and said, look, here's some individuals that have a lot of exposure to noise. They have head trauma issues, and their health is very important to them. Their relationships and communication is very important to them. So we reached out to those unions and said, look, your members have a quality of life issue that we can help with. And we're going to show you that. We're going to help them get reconnected to those relationships. And through that, we're hoping you can help us create more awareness. So by that global partnership, we're starting to create more and more visibility for the importance of hearing loss and getting those people with hearing difficulties connected to the local practice, while at the same time breaking down that stereotype, because we all think about hearing difficulties as something for older people, but today almost 20% of teenagers have hearing difficulties. 60% of returning veterans have some degree of hearing difficulty, and right now it's a global issue that's affecting their incomes and it's affecting their relationships. So by bringing in those celebrity athletes like Jerry West and Steve Grogan who help us, who have joined our cause, we're helping breaking down some of those stereotypes, and some athletes of all ages are helping us with
removing the stigma, right, and allowing it to be a broader conversation. I really think that strategy is a twofer from the standpoint of not only are you giving permission for that conversation to be had, but you're making an intergenerational conversation as well, right? It's not just a conversation between seniors anymore.
Yeah, our goal is to disrupt the current mindset, and that's how we can change the current result and get people communicating again.
But core to your distribution strategy is an online presence that drives people to these independent distributors, correct?
Sure.
We'll talk more about your partnership later. And we talked a little bit about this, but it's about educational content, correct?
Yeah, that's what we found, was that the education, the access to information, when I'm going to make any kind of decision, I'm going to Google and I'm typing in that request, and what we found was that the information about hearing awareness, about hearing solutions, and was inadequate. So our focus is on creating more educational access, as well as some diversity on the internet, looking to develop. You'll see more hearing aids for him and in his lifestyle, or individual situations. We created a foundation to tell incredible stories. It's called the Hear Strong Foundation, and it tells the stories of people who've overcome hearing difficulties. And what we realized from this whole process is that every one of us has challenges, but it isn't the challenges that define us, it's what we do in the face of them. And that's why so many people who are our Hear Strong champions are living full lives and are so happy and engaged in successful careers in many walks of life.
Yep, that's great. And I want to come back to that, and I want to get a little bit more tactical about how you're using the internet and driving that traffic. But Tony, I don't want you to feel like you're not part of this.
No,
this
party. We've had a wide-ranging conversation thus far.
We have, haven't we?
We've gone from George Foreman Grill to ED to. I don't know if I'm going to be able to top it.
No, you're going to be great. So ADT is an interesting story, and we talked about. You will tell the audience a little bit about your distribution strategy and how you guys use the internet as well.
Yeah, so I think compared to our traditional security business, the internet has not been really a big source of demand generation for our business. We are using a direct TV kind of response model. We primarily air 60-second spots. We've even gone up to 2-minute spots. It's a segment and a consumer that responds well to TV. Direct mail has been very successful for us. And just telemarketing. So we're very unique in that we drop ship our product in some cases, and then we also do in-home personal selling and personal placement of our PERS devices. So we really think it's a kind of a unique situation. There's a lot happening in this space in terms of distribution, from retail to third-party resellers, and I think the space is rapidly changing. But what we really find advantageous for us right now is that, as was said earlier in the panel, is that you may have someone that's purchasing the product and someone else that's using it, and you have to have both of them bought in. My grandmother, who's 91 in Orlando, she has one of our products in her home, and it wasn't an easy sale. Despite having all the best information and getting her the best price and everything, there was a lot to get her on board for her to feel like this was something that was truly needed. And ultimately, I think she did it because she was trying to probably shut me up. But
for her boy, right?
We really believe that for us, the in-home, across-the-table sale of this product, the installation and the install of it, and something unique for us is that for customers desiring it, we will actually put a lockbox by their front door. So my grandmother lives in Orlando in a pretty high crime area. She lives by herself, and we have a lockbox that's right by the front door because she has a barred front door. And it allows us that if we respond or dispatch first responders, that we can also allow them to get quick access to get into the home. So we still find that this is an audience, when you look at TV consumption, you were saying, and you look at someone that's 65 or 55 and over, their TV consumptions are what we all know and we kind of grew up on, versus someone that's doing a second, or even in some cases of my youngers, they have 3 screens going at the same time. So it is a unique problem that's, I think, quickly evolving.
Yeah, so kudos to you. I mean, your target audience is really 70 plus, I think you said. Is that correct?
That's where we place the product, but the decision maker is often, the son or the daughter, caregiver. We do a lot of business with governments. We're working very hard with a lot of insurance carriers in terms of the Affordable Care Act, and I think the way that it's now forcing hospitals and doctors to think about how they're going to not be penalized or how they're going to be rewarded for ensuring that folks don't come back and revisit them following discharge.
So talk a little bit about the in-home sales. I mean, that sounds so old school, but I can imagine that really works for you. Are those full-time employees? Are you insisting on the adult child being there?
Those are full-time employees. Obviously, the person that's signing the contract is the person paying the bill and being obligated legally. But we sit across the table and it's an install, and we've had a lot of debate about, geez, it would be just easier to get rid of this across the kitchen room or kitchen table selling process. But we do find it's a very unique value prop that we have. The mobile help team was here before, and we have a kind of a relationship and partnership with them. But we also know that, for example, when we test every month, we do a quick test of our PERS product. A lot of those calls are not a quick 30-second, hey, yeah, my PERS is working. They turn into 4, 5, 6-minute calls about, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? Glad you're safe today. Have a great holiday, and it's an extended. And so we've kind of taken a little bit, not quite as detailed as the Zappos approach, but we really aren't pressing our dispatchers and agents in that case to get off the phone quickly. We're looking really to build that trust and rapport with the customer. So.
Yeah, you guys were Kindle Mayday before Kindle Mayday, right? but you have kind of tailored that customer experience to the consumer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So 2 of you here have experience with partnerships. Tony with AARP and Ed with the NFL Players Association. I wonder if you guys could talk to those. I realize those are very different types of strategic partnerships, but speak to those a little bit in terms of at what point you invested in them. AARP in particular, I know they're here, but for many people that have a product or service, I hear this all the time, they're a client of ours, and a lot of times we'll have brands come to us because they want to get to AARP because they think they're the holy grail of distribution channels. So can you tell us a little bit about that partnership, where it works well, maybe what size somebody needs to be, how to approach it?
I think we've been an AARP partner approaching almost 10 years, I believe. And it's a good partnership. It's one that we renew every year. They obviously are, I think, a trusted source. There are a lot of other, I think, competitors and similar products that are in that space. But I would also say that, you still have to have a strong value prop. Reaching consumers through AARP is sometimes, I think, fairly expensive in terms of kind of, if you're going to look at it on a cost per thousand or cost per impression basis. So we value the relationship. I think we gain a lot of insights around the psyche, the intent, what's happening with the category, and when we activate with them, we find it successful. I would say that it's not the only thing that we're doing though to make sure that we reach this audience. It's
part of the mix.
one of the things in the mix.
Yeah, very good. Any advice for everybody sitting out there in terms of, when was it appropriate for you guys to engage in a relationship like that with AARP?
I think if you're looking to crack this market, I would certainly give them consideration and talk to them. I mean,
sooner than later.
Look, I think it would be one of the things if you had a product for silver population, I would certainly look at that and look how brands are marketing, and their publications and their loyalty and their membership program is very robust. When we advertise, we see results, but like I said, it is one component of how we're going to go to market. And look, when we have television opportunities, we go that extra mile to make sure that people know that we're associated with AARP. When folks call on the phone to our call center, we make people aware that we are an AARP, because I think it's a nice endorsement and credibility.
Now I'm curious, is that holding true with the boomers as well?
I'd say I probably have less direct correlation that's helping with boomers, even though membership in AARP is 50 plus.
50 plus, right?
I think for us, that consumer is still of the mindset of searching online. My grandmother or someone in their 70s probably is not. Google's not going to be the first thing into to purchase the whole thing online. They're going to go third party. They're going to TV, direct mail, and more traditional things. So we find that the 50 plus they tend to do internet and friends and traditional third party endorsement is very important to them. So. Anyway.
So Ed, you told us a little bit about the role that your relationship with the NFL Players Association plays, but I'm curious, just at a more tactical level, what is the relationship? What do you invest into it? What do you get out of it? How does that play out in terms of what you do online?
For us, it's been a long-term strategy to just partner with them to create awareness. The first step was to introduce them to the importance of hearing health care for their members. And a lot of people, we look at the glamour side of professional sports, and there's another side to it. Not everyone goes out there and makes tens of millions of dollars. The average career is 3.5 years, and most of these young men are fresh out of college, so they have lifestyles that they have to get engaged with, and the frequency of hearing loss amongst these players is significantly higher from what we've seen. So having them be able to communicate as they get re-engaged in a public career is a difficult challenge.
So there's spokespeople for you. Is that translating into content online?
Yeah, in a lot of different ways. There's different events that we've shared with them. We have done events with the Chicago Bears to help on our awareness campaign at their training camp. We have done events with the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Green Bay Packers organization took us under their wing to help create awareness using their brand. So it's just really helping spread the word in a long-term strategy that's starting to get us noticed.
Very much an awareness play. So Kevin, I want to come back to you. So you perfected this direct response via television way of reaching the mass markets. But in our conversation, you said that doesn't always translate when you're dealing with niche markets. Somebody mentioned about boomers in television, boomers and seniors in television. Very, very true. Some very recent data and research shows that actually boomers now are spending more time online than they are watching television, which is amazing for this group known as the television generation. But there's a lot of reasons for that, and one of the reasons is the ubiquity of online video.
Right.
And so, Kevin, what can you tell us about that? Have you been able to take what you've done on television and have that work for you online?
Yes. I started in the infomercial side of direct response, which is 30-minute shows. In a 30-minute show, we'll have there's 10 message points that I go for in a 30-minute show, because you've got three kind of 10-minute pods. So there's 10 things that I need to accomplish during that show. But in short form, like you mentioned, 60-second or 2-minute, and this is the difference. On the internet, you don't see 30-minute videos. No one's going to watch it, right? So we've had to shrink our selling message down to 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 60, 90, 120s, even 120 is getting long. But we've consolidated that selling message into 3 steps. T's, please, and C's is the 3 steps, okay? So the T's is the, selling, there's always a problem. And I don't care if it's a diabetic problem, the walk-in bathtubs, there's a cane that's called the Hurricane. It's got a 3 pivoting cane that you can kind of, that's a really cool, that thing's been very successful. The psoriasis is another spot that's out there. So there's always a problem. So that's the T's. The please is selling the benefits, and this gets into testimonials, I think Tony mentioned. And then the C's is asking, for some action, pick up the phone, click here, or, go to, some page or whatever. So that's really kind of in 3 quick steps. If you only have 15 seconds, you got to do some pretty quick action in 15 seconds on the internet. So, because if you don't get them within 5 seconds, then they're off to somewhere else. So, we've taken that 30-minute message and been able to bring it down, and ultimately, the internet is the new way of selling, and we're just following those techniques.
Do the other techniques that we most commonly associate with infomercials translate as well? The spokesperson, the person who's standing by and affirming everything the spokesperson is saying?
I believe if you can get celebrities, if it makes sense. I mean, if you have an NFL player that can, that's an attention getter. That's sort of the tease, because, oh, wait a minute, what's Joe Montana saying today? If you're a football fan, you're going to, Roger Staubach or whoever it might be. So I believe celebrities can be channel stoppers on TV, and they can be page stoppers on the internet. They have to have there should be a credibility factor with them and the product, though, also. I think if it's just a paid spokesperson role, I like to try to tie them into it, where they actually have used the product, or, if it's skincare, for example, a lot of like Guthrie Renker, they do a lot of these celebrity type things, the Cindy Crawford and Victoria Principal, they've developed in some cases, actually did participate in the development of these products. Yeah. So, I think, I believe, especially when you only have a short period of time to get the attention and get people to focus and watch something, to have some kind of an attention-getting celebrity can be powerful.
Great. So there's something very non-traditional about Kevin's company, As Seen on TV. How many people in here are familiar with As Seen on TV? So As Seen on TV is actually an open source brand, if I understand correctly. And so when Kevin and I were talking, I said, well, yeah, it's funny, I saw As Seen on TV in a couple of retail outlets. In fact, got something, a little cushion that goes underneath my grandmother so she could start sitting in the pews again. And I started asking him some questions about that, and he explained to me, hey, this is an open source brand, and in fact, those retailers are out doing that on their own. Very non-traditional means of getting in front of the consumer, and I didn't know if you could just speak to that a little bit. There's pros and cons, right?
Yeah, so As Seen on TV, somewhere about 30 years ago, somebody started putting that word out, that when the products were out there, oh, this is the one that was As Seen on TV, but nobody claimed ownership, and then it became sort of a credibility stamp for the product that this is the one that you can trust because it was As Seen on TV. So in the world of As Seen on TV, the only IP, intellectual property, is the .com. And that's what I own, is AsSeenOnTV.com. So there's $10 million a week spent in my world on TV, and 50% of the people now go to the internet to buy. So 50% of our sales, 50% of QVC, 50% of HSN, it's on the internet. So $10 million is spent on television and 50% go to the internet to try to find, oh, wait a minute, can I get this at a better price or something similar that's, you know, better or cheaper? So that's where I come in. I don't own the stores and I don't own the logo, but I own the .com, and that's the benefit. I capitalize. I get 15 million customers that come to my site because of all the media that's been spent on television that drives my site.
But don't you see some potential in store? I mean, when Apple was making their comeback, right, one of the first things they did from a distribution standpoint was stick a store with their staff inside of Best Buy. Now it's Best Buy's whole model as a big box. If you walk in there, you've got the Samsung store, you've got the Apple store, and so forth. And these are organically happening and probably driving traffic to you online.
Yes.
But I'm curious, what do you think about that store-in-store model, and why don't you formalize that arrangement a little more?
Well, you know, actually, if you go into Walgreens or CVS, or most stores now have a store within a store, kind of as seen on TV section.
Yeah.
They don't have it branded as such, but it's sort of a little end cap somewhere. And so, and what the reason being is that the stores typically have buyers that buy, if you wanted to launch something today, this is January, for March, and you called Walgreens and said, I want to put this on in March, they'd say, that's March of 2015, not 2014. In the world of as seen on TV, you could show a product today and have it on the shelves in 60 days because they have an as seen on TV buyer at that store. Because they know as seen on TV is so hot that at that particular moment, there might be $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a week in media being spent on that hot item. So they have to be able to capitalize on the media right now by putting that product into the store. So they have a buyer that knows the metrics of the media dollars that need to get spent to be able to justify putting it in the store quickly and all of that. But it isn't something, the stores are doing it themselves.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm doing, though, is partnering with the stores on their .coms. Because, again, I have 1,000 products. The store only sells maybe 30. So you know, and their .com is only selling 30.
Yeah.
But I have 1,000 because I sell everybody's product on my site. So
Yep.
that's what we're doing, is going store within a store on the .com.
I think that's fascinating. I hope that's some food for thought for everybody here. I have one more specific question that I'd like to take, maybe a question or two. We don't have much time from the audience, if there are any, and then I have a final question for all of them, all the panelists. Ed, kind of a challenging question to you, and I asked you this on the phone as well, but what's it going to take for you to sell direct online?
We don't see direct online as an option for us, but what we're trying to do is create easy access to the private practice. So our focus is creating a very simple access for someone to get the information that they need and get connected to the local provider, because there's such an important healthcare and medical component to it.
So the answer there is you're not doing it because of the perceived channel conflict?
No.
No? That's not the correct answer?
We're
You don't want to upset your independent distributors.
Well, I think there's a health issue there. If we don't get them to a medical professional, there could be other issues. There could be serious health issues that aren't uncovered if we don't get them to the provider instead of just selling direct.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm trying to get people thinking here. But in fact, hearing aids are sold online.
No, actually, they're not sold legally online. You'll find them, you'll find that organizations out of the country are selling them. You will see.
But there's less technical scientific hearing help is one I can think of.
Well, there is personal sound amplification products that are out there, but they're not being sold correctly and have been reprimanded by the FDA and how they're being represented, because a hearing device is a Class II medical device that's regulated by the FDA and therefore is required, because there are health issues that cause hearing difficulties. So if I have a tumor in my ear and I'm having difficulty hearing, if I order something online, I'm not going to get that taken care of.
So I'm hearing a high level of integrity. You're not worried so much about the channel conflict, but if you could deliver the health consultation that would be necessary, you might go there.
I don't see how you do that. We haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So any questions from the audience? How do you get your products and services in front of and in the hands of these consumers? Anything based on what we talked about up here today? Anybody? I'm having trouble seeing.
You're standing between them and a cold drink.
I know. Okay, that's okay. So I have one final question for everybody. We'll go down the row here. Kevin, if you kind of speak to a little bit what you're doing here, but for everybody, what would you offer as advice for the people sitting here that are looking to take, a product to market? What are some of the things that you would do, if you were starting over with a new product or service?
I think, certainly building awareness to the degree that you can build a strong value prop with a base of customers that can offer testimonials, can give you third-party referrals. So I would say, starting small, get a foothold, build awareness, and then look for distribution beyond that.
Would you go direct? Basically,
I would definitely go direct. I think in the PERS category right now, there's a lot happening in terms of retail, and we think we will sell. We don't currently, but we will sell online because we think there's a son or a daughter who will make the decision to purchase this online on behalf of their parent. So I think there's some opportunity there.
It's great. Ed?
I just think it's important that we were a startup originally, and we've been very fortunate. But what we're always looking for is something that can disrupt the current mindset towards the product. So I think it's so critical that you look for something creative instead of following the norm in that category, but something that can really catch people off guard and by surprise.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think there's a few distribution channels out there that everybody thinks they should follow, so that disruption, I think, is important. Now, Mr. Disruption, you're in fact helping a lot of people take products to market, right?
Yes.
One of the unanticipated outcomes of you owning that brand is that people send their products to you.
Yes.
So how are you helping them? What would you recommend?
Okay, so the big thing in our world right now, because a lot of people, we deal with inventors and a lot of smaller startup kind of guys, a lot of them don't have capital. So the biggest thing that we're doing right now is teaching and showing them how, if we don't put up the money, because we fund a lot of projects, and that's what kind of Shark Tank was all about, was, come on the show and see if the shark wants to invest in your project, right? But we're showing people how to do crowdfunding. And, crowdfunding is just an amazing thing. There's over $5 billion that's been crowdfunded in just the last couple of years now. And people that have no money can go up on a website, put a little video together, and get, there's $250,000 in a couple of weeks to fund their whole project. So, in fact, I'll just, if I could give I'll give a little website. I have a first chapter of a book on crowdfunding that's coming out at kevinharrington.tv. They can download the first chapter free of charge, and it's kevinharrington.tv is a website, and it talks about how to use crowdfunding to take any idea, any product, and there's various sites that you can use, and let the market put up the money for your idea. So it's the last word of the recommendation is, even if you're not, let's say you're a company, you got plenty of budget, plenty of money, but you don't want to do TV or you don't want to test the infomercial or direct selling, companies could do a crowdfunding for the budget to do the TV commercial. So let's say if it's going to cost 50 or 100 grand or whatever, maybe 200,000. You could go, a company has all the money in the world. I mean, Tom Hanks' son is crowdfunding his video projects, and he's got, his father could fund him, but, he's doing crowdfunding. So, use the internet to fund your ideas. And plus, if they like your ideas, then it's proved, it's proved out that you've got some traction on it already.
Yeah, I mean, in one sense, it's both a great feedback loop, obviously a way to raise money, but to a certain extent, it's a little bit of a distribution strategy, right? Because aren't a lot of times you rewarded by product?
Yes, it's almost an instant focus group, because if the crowd doesn't fund it, they may not like it, so maybe it's something we shouldn't be marketing.
You might want to look at it again, right?
Yeah, we use it as a gauge to decide whether we're going to take something to the next step even.
Yeah, not just for small startups anymore either.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.